Hi, I'm Gregg, and this is Brainiac Jonathan, who knows everything about, well, almost everything about Volvos. And what he doesn't know, he knows the people inside a Volvo to get the answers. That's key. We're going to tell you today about how to specifically design a Volvo from the factory, what to do to the chassis and the unique accommodations or adaptations that are required for our light RVs that we're going to be towing. Comparatively light.
Comparatively light in the trucking world.
Go.
Well, there's a lot of different things, and as we've talked about in some of our other videos, the customization you can do to a commercial truck is staggering. One of the things is we can vary the wheelbase by 2-inch increments, all the way from as short as a 170-inch truck up to 300 and 400-inch frames.
Now, I'm going to say, if we're talking about a 780 or a Model 730, the wheelbase we really like is 236 inches. 230 is okay. 236 is what you're going to see from RVH Lifestyles and myself.
And that's where a conversation with myself and Gregg on the design you want to use really comes into play, because you can tell me how much room you need for those boxes and I can accommodate the chassis to fit them.
Yep.
And that's where we come together to build this. Now, one other thing is the size of fuel tanks. And we've had this conversation before. These trucks come with really big fuel tanks because they're designed to haul long distances and heavy weights. Mm-hmm. We found that most customers want a 150-gallon fuel tank on each side, so 300 gallons.
Which is the biggest that we can do.
Yeah, it's the largest you're allowed to capacity. Yeah. Unfortunately, you don't need anywhere near that much fuel. That's 4,000 kilometers or 2,500 miles worth of driving.
There's a compromise. The 150-gallon tanks really start to encroach into the storage space on the frame that we also really like. So I'm going to make a recommendation to you. Look more towards the 125-gallon tanks. Mm-hmm. Now, we can mix and match. We can put different size tanks.
Of course we can. We can put 100-gallon on one side and 150 on the other.
But kind of a happy medium here is if you're looking at 250 gallons total, 125 aside, it gives us a good amount of storage and it tucks more of that fuel tank up underneath the sleeper.
And again, when we're designing the truck, we can go through those calculations and figure out what we can accommodate, where we're willing to give some space and where we need to use some space.
So when you work with Jonathan or myself, you're going to get actually engineered drawings that show you the little spaces, how much room is between the rear axle and here's my truck again. It'll explain to you where that fuel tank is underneath here and how many little gaps we've got and space between the axle and the back of the fuel tank. So Jonathan and I are going to give you all of that information if you choose to design one with us.
Next, I think we can talk about the fairings. And if I can borrow your truck for a second, these are a fairing. So they're a plastic device that gets mounted on the side. It's a heavy-duty plastic. It'll hold up. That help with the airflow. Now, you may have seen trucks without these where the fuel tanks and the air tanks are all exposed. However, they really cut down on the aerodynamics of the truck and end up costing you fuel economy. So we found that both aesthetically and for performance-wise, we like ordering the trucks with the full fairings all the way to the end of the cab. And then that's where your body design will take over, adding your toolboxes and all the other pieces we put on. So this is something you're going to want to order. It is a cost, but you are going to save it in fuel over the course of a truck.
Okay.
Next, one thing we've learned, unfortunately, the hard way is anti-siphon fuel tanks. So somebody can't come by and find 225 gallons or 250 gallons worth of fuel and just start taking them out. So when we build these trucks, we build them with the anti-siphon built into them so they can't borrow your fuel. If we continue on, there's many different bumper options. We found the plastic bumper is actually probably the best. It's a 3-piece bumper. We can put the nice little chrome pieces in to give you a little extra showy feel, and the aerodynamics underneath to keep the truck aerodynamic.
Which is new.
That's new.
The aerodynamics underneath the bumper, that came from...
Well, every year we have
the
super truck. Every year we try to increase fuel economy and increase aerodynamics, and that's just one way we keep up with it.
What we're starting to see is, you may have seen the videos of the Volvo Super Truck. Actually, we're seeing components of that truck now coming into the RVHauler builds that we're making. Kind of cool.
Now, we can't go into a lot of detail because we just don't have enough time on these videos to do it, but there is a lot of features in the chassis and transportation that we've figured out over the course of time that we need to put on an RV hauler. And simple things like the wiring, the air, how everything's designed, it's very specific. And
cross members
where they need to be placed, how we need to mount the rear taillights. these are things that we've just developed over time and we have down to a science, and we know how that needs to be ordered.
What other adaptations? Frame.
Frame thicknesses, we've got that kind of figured out.
From the factory, we can order an extra long frame. Believe it or not, this frame on a commercial truck is not long enough in most of our cases. I tend to need to add between 22 inches or more. I've always had to weld on the frame. So one of the nice things is with Jonathan, we're going to get everything back here the way it's supposed to be.
We don't
From
need
the
to
factory,
remount.
we don't have to move stuff.
Yep.
It comes the way we want it. Same with all the, no exhaust up top, of course, but the commercial equipment that's on here, we minimize that. There's a lot of cost savings that Jonathan is able to do. Some unique, because of his relationships with Volvo Engineering, he's able to ask for specific special things.
Well, as simple as you don't need a fifth wheel hitch. You supply an air ride fifth wheel hitch that's specifically designed for hauling an RV, and the commercial fifth wheel hitch for a truck doesn't work for our application. That's why it's so important to have the conversation with Gregg and myself at the same time. You don't want to come and buy the truck and then start talking to Gregg. You need to talk to Gregg first, figure out the design and how you want to use the truck, so I can order the right amount of frame. We can place the axles where they need to be to get the right balance.
That's well said.
Are we ready to move on to our next video?
Yes, I think we're going to talk about exteriors a little bit more.
The chrome.
The chrome.
All right.
Okay, the chrome and the glitz is coming up next as our
See you
next
soon.
video.